Okay. Other
You know what
things.
else is happening in hot multiplayer gaming?
Yeah, absolutely. If you liked Warframe, well, here comes Soulframe.
Hey,
Digital Extremes just announced
I
at
want to give a big
TennoCon.
shout out that part of the Soulframe announcement is that a friend of the show, Rebecca Ford, has now been promoted to creative director over on Warframe. So Space Mom is now running the
In
show
control of
on
Warframe.
Warframe,
That's
which
pretty
is
cool.
so appropriate. And Steve is now going to be the head creative on fucking Soulframe, which
So, a couple
it's going to be
of
slower.
yeah. So I saw a couple of keywords that certainly uh, piqued my interest. I raised an eyebrow when I was reading about Soulframe, and they said that it's going to be a slower, melee-focused fantasy setting.
Yeah.
So it's in a lot of ways going to be a bit of an the opposite of what Warframe is, which is fast guns, space tech.
Oh, dude, you don't like at the point Warframe is now. You don't even shoot your guns. you
You
just
just cast.
you just hit your button and everything dies.
Okay.
Um, Warframe when Soulframe comes out, I feel like we're gonna look at Warframe as like the longest, most expansive game jam ever to create new ideas
Hmm.
for a real game. The idea of them starting over and learning all the lessons that could be learned from Warframe is very exciting because there are many lessons that they learned from that.
Over the years, the discussions about PvP and how to fix it and how it's been treated has been sounded like a source of multiple lessons. The question, of course, is when you say slow melee focus, that makes you think of
It's
souls.
got the goddamn word in the title. I can't
Of
I
course.
can't imagine that is by accident.
So are they really just trying to say, hey, we're going to take that type of framework and apply it to what we do with Warframe in an MMO context?
So they've described that Warframe has had like hub areas where there's like towns and then like open world sections, and those have been like increasingly more complex. And that
Mm-hmm.
Soulframe is going to use that as its basis instead of Warframe's like randomly generated corridor crawling shooting, and then adding open world stuff on it later. So it's probably going to be closer to an understandable MMO as you would think. Um, this is me pulling it out of my ass, but based on my experience with Warframe and Warframe's open world stuff and the descriptions of uh, Soulframe, I'm feeling a less PvP focused version of what Absolver was supposed to be.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. It's funny how studios will do something and then learn and then move on to the next thing because Absolver taught them how to make Sifu, you
Yep.
know, and now Warframe is moving into what sounds like a Souls type setting. But if you really like step back though and take that part out of it, slow fantasy based MMO with melee focus is also just what MMOs kind of are
Yeah.
to begin with. So it's like in an opposite Warframe context, it's interesting because you're contrasting, but on its own, it's like yeah, but any game where you MMO'd with a sword and went
Uh
and
huh.
fought a dragon with some buddies is also that, right? But you know there that
Probably.
Digital Extremes does
Yeah.
good shit, so you can trust it.
Probably the weirdest thing about Soulframe is I'm watching over the trailer again, and I can't think of any setting that has ever done this, despite it being humans and like fantasy instead of future robots. It is the exact same art style. Like it is how do I describe this? Like the style of ornamentation, the color palette, the design on every piece of armor, like you you could literally just say this is what the Orokin were up to prior to making a Warframe. Like it
A-
looks.
And that probably speeds up the production process for this game fivefold because you
It
don't
is
have to
the
stop
war.
and figure it out.
It is the Warhammer to Warframe's 40K.
40K. Makes
Like it is
sense.
so clearly recognizable.
Yeah. If you
Um,
have to switch art styles drastically, then you have to come up with a style Bible. And after you come up with a style Bible, you have to get all of your artists to, like, get used to that and work it out and then iron out what doesn't work, what goes too far, hit the hard limits. And then with that style guide, you will now create a whole new world of things. Or you can use what you've established and is working. And I think you wouldn't name the game something so close to Warframe if you didn't want there to be parallels to the two, right?
oh yeah,
It's
no,
it's
they're gonna
inviting
continue in parallel.
it's inviting the comparison as opposed to saying Warframe is
Oh,
that old shit and we're moving on to some new thing completely, you know?
I'm liking people saying Warframe minus 40K.
Okay. Yeah, sure, sure.
I can dig it.
Cool. I like melee focus as a word. That's a good word. I enjoy that.
There was a point in Warframe's life cycle where melee was more important than it is now, and that was my favorite time of that game.
Hmm.
The best time Warframe ever had is there was a point in your playthrough where you used your abilities, your gun, and your melee equally, and that was great. And I would kill to go back to just more melee options.
Um yeah, anything on a date with this?
Fuck no.
Yeah. Now, I guess the other bit
Later.
is, well, the 10-year game, right? Like, it'll happen and then it'll continue to happen over the course of a decade.
What I'm going to tell you right now is get excited for next year's TennoCon to give you a vague date that they're going to miss.
Uh,